Maya always thought of Ethan as her safe place. He was charming, thoughtful, and seemed to understand her in a way no one else ever had. After years of failed relationships, she believed she had finally found the person she could trust with her whole heart. But lately, things had felt off. Small, almost imperceptible things that gnawed at her peace of mind. It started innocently enough. Maya noticed her favorite book, which she always kept on her nightstand, was moved slightly out of place. Then there were the times Ethan would casually bring up conversations she had with her best friend, despite her never mentioning them to him. When she asked how he knew, he'd shrug it off with a laugh and say, "Lucky guess." Maya wanted to believe him. After all, wasn't she just being paranoid? He loved her, didn't he? But the feeling persisted, growing louder with every passing day. One evening, as Maya was cleaning the living room, her hand brushed against something unusual. It was a small, barely noticeable device tucked discreetly between the books on the shelf. Her breath caught as she picked it up. It was a camera. A chill ran down her spine. Why was there a camera in her living room? She tried to calm herself, telling herself it could belong to Ethan, maybe for a harmless purpose. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Her mind raced with questions. She couldn't bring herself to confront Ethan right away. What if she was wrong? What if she accused him of something innocent and destroyed their relationship for no reason? But what if she was right? The next day, Maya's unease grew unbearable. She decided to look deeper. She searched her apartment meticulously, her heart pounding with every discovery. One in the bedroom. Another in the bathroom. The bathroom. She stared at the tiny device hidden near the ceiling vent, her stomach turning in knots. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. Maya collapsed onto her couch, clutching the small pile of cameras she had collected. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to make sense of the situation. The person she trusted most, the person she had let into her most private spaces, had been watching her, violating her. The thought made her feel sick, but also angry, an anger she hadn't felt in years. But Maya didn't let herself wallow for long. She wiped her tears and grabbed her laptop. If Ethan thought she was just a helpless victim, he was wrong. She began researching hidden camera brands, figuring out where they were typically sold. She even joined online forums about surveillance devices, trying to understand how deep this might go. The more she learned, the more determined she became. Ethan wasn't just invading her privacy, he was controlling her life, and Maya wasn't about to let it continue. By the time Ethan came home that evening, Maya was composed, though her mind was swirling. He kissed her on the cheek, asking how her day had been. Maya forced a smile, the cameras tucked away in a drawer where he couldn't see them. "It was fine," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Just another day, but in her mind, a plan was already forming. She wasn't going to confront him just yet. First, she needed proof. She needed to be sure of how far Ethan had gone and why. And when she did, she would make sure he regretted every moment he had spent underestimating her. Maya spent the next few days living a double life. On the outside, she maintained the appearance of a loving girlfriend, smiling at Ethan's jokes, cooking dinner together, and even indulging his requests for weekend plans. But on the inside, she was unraveling a dark secret that had turned her entire world upside down. Every interaction with Ethan felt like walking a tightrope, knowing one wrong move could tip him off. Armed with determination, Maya turned her apartment into a private investigation zone. She mapped out where she had found the cameras and began searching for any devices she might have missed. She checked under furniture, inside light fixtures, and even behind picture frames. What she uncovered shocked her: hidden microphones in addition to the cameras. Ethan wasn't just watching her, he was listening too. The thought made her skin crawl. She imagined Ethan sitting somewhere, listening to her most vulnerable moments, the times she cried after a bad day, the private conversations she had with her best friend, the moments she thought she was safe. The betrayal felt suffocating, but Maya refused to let it paralyze her. Have you ever felt powerless in a situation? How did you take back control? Let us know your story in the comments. It might inspire someone else to keep fighting. Like this video if you believe in standing up for yourself and others, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience and justice. Maya realized that the cameras and microphones had to be connected to a central device. She began observing Ethan closely, noting how often he disappeared into his office. It was the one room in their apartment where she rarely went, mainly because Ethan had always insisted it was his work zone. Now, she knew why. Late one night, when Ethan was fast asleep, Maya crept into the office. Her hands shook as she sifted through his desk drawers, careful not to leave anything out of place. In the bottom drawer, she found a sleek black laptop. When she opened it, her heart sank. The laptop was filled with folders, each labeled with a date. Inside were hours of footage videos of her cooking, lounging on the couch, brushing her hair in the bathroom, even sleeping. The invasion of privacy was worse than she had imagined. She wanted to scream, to wake Ethan up and demand answers, but she knew she couldn't risk it yet. As she delved deeper, she discovered something even more disturbing. Ethan wasn't just recording her for his own use, he was sharing some of the footage online. Maya found logs of transactions, anonymous buyers purchasing clips for obscene amounts of money. She felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a crime. Maya closed the laptop and leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow. Every part of her wanted to run. She thought about leaving the apartment that night, disappearing without a word. But as her panic began to subside, something inside her shifted. Running wouldn't fix this. Ethan wouldn't stop. He'd move on to another victim, continuing his predatory behavior. No, she couldn't leave. Not yet. For the next few days, Maya pretended everything was normal. She went to work, met friends for coffee, and even laughed at Ethan's jokes, all while gathering evidence. She started taking screenshots of the laptop files, saving copies to an encrypted drive. She documented the locations of the cameras and microphones, taking photos of each device with timestamps. But the hardest part was pretending with Ethan. Every time he touched her, she felt a surge of anger. Every time he asked her how her day was, she wanted to scream the truth at him. Yet, she stayed silent, knowing that her patience was the key to exposing him. One evening, while Ethan was out, Maya decided to take things a step further. She planted her own hidden camera in his office, positioning it to capture him at his desk. She needed undeniable proof, something that would show his actions in real time. When Ethan returned, he greeted her with the same charming smile that had once made her feel safe. "How's my favorite girl?" he asked, leaning in for a kiss. Maya smiled back, her heart pounding. "I'm good," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "Just tired." It's been a long day. As Ethan settled into his office, Maya retreated to her bedroom. From her laptop, she accessed the feed from her newly planted camera. She watched as Ethan opened his laptop, pulling up the same folders she had seen days before. He clicked through footage of her, adjusting timestamps and uploading clips to an encrypted website. Maya's stomach churned. But she didn't look away. She needed to see this through. For the first time, she felt like she had the upper hand. Ethan had no idea that he was now the one being watched. Maya stared at the screen long after Ethan had gone to bed. She knew she was on borrowed time. If Ethan discovered what she was doing, she had no idea how he'd react. But she also knew she couldn't stop now. The betrayal she felt had transformed into something stronger: determination. She wasn't just going to expose Ethan, she was going to make sure he could never hurt anyone else again. She was done being the victim. Now, it was his turn to feel exposed. Maya sat in the dim light of her bedroom, staring at the laptop screen. She watched as Ethan, completely unaware, clicked through folders and sold private videos online. Her hands balled into fists, and she felt a mix of rage and resolve. This was her life he had stolen, her privacy he had violated, and she was determined to take it back. For days, Maya had quietly gathered evidence: screenshots of transactions, records of camera placements, and footage of Ethan accessing his laptop. Now, it was time to make her next move. But she knew one thing: Ethan was smart, and if she wanted to outsmart him, she couldn't let her emotions take over. Every step had to be calculated. The next morning, Maya sent an email from an anonymous account to a lawyer specializing in privacy and cybercrime. She explained her situation in detail, attaching some of the evidence she had collected. The response was swift and clear: she had a strong case. The lawyer assured her that Ethan's actions were not only morally reprehensible but also highly illegal. Feeling a spark of hope, Maya took the lawyer's advice and filed a detailed report with the authorities. But she wasn't stopping there. She knew Ethan deserved more than just legal consequences. He needed to feel the same vulnerability and fear he had inflicted on her. That evening, Maya set her plan into motion. She used the burner email she'd created to contact one of the buyers listed in Ethan's transaction history. Posing as a new seller, she asked questions about the process and how the payments worked. The buyer, unsuspecting of her real intentions, eagerly provided details and even confirmed previous transactions with Ethan. This was the confirmation Maya needed. She forwarded the conversation to her lawyer and saved copies for herself. But now she wanted something Ethan couldn't deny. She needed him to incriminate himself. Maya adjusted her hidden camera in Ethan's office, ensuring it would capture everything. She also planted a microphone under his desk. Her hands trembled as she worked, but her resolve never wavered. This wasn't just about exposing Ethan, it was about reclaiming her power. The next day, Maya initiated phase 2 of her plan. Over dinner, she casually mentioned that her workplace was conducting a cybersecurity seminar and hinted that she'd learned some tips about spotting hidden surveillance devices. Ethan froze for a moment, his fork hovering midair. "Oh. Like what kind of tips?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes cautious. "Oh, just basic stuff," Maya replied, keeping her voice light. "Like how people can hide cameras in everyday objects. It's scary what some people will do." Ethan laughed nervously. "Yeah, that sounds creepy." "Good thing we don't have to worry about anything like that." Maya smiled tightly. Yeah, good thing later that night, Maya watched the feed from her hidden camera as Ethan sat in his office. He was visibly uneasy, pacing the room before opening his laptop. She saw him checking the camera feeds from around the apartment and muttering to himself. Then, to her shock, he pulled out a hard drive and began transferring files from his laptop. This was it. He was trying to cover his tracks. Maya hit record on her own device, capturing every move he made. She even caught him speaking to himself, "I need to wipe everything before she gets suspicious." It was the smoking gun she had been waiting for. As Maya watched Ethan's frantic attempts to erase evidence, a wave of emotion hit her. She thought about the love she had once felt for him, the trust she had given so freely. How could someone who claimed to love her do something so vile? The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. But with that pain came strength. She wasn't the same woman she had been weeks ago. She was no longer afraid of Ethan or his power over her. For the first time, she felt like she had the upper hand. The following day, Maya shared the new evidence with her lawyer and the authorities. They assured her that a warrant was being prepared to search the apartment and seize Ethan's devices. Knowing the end was near, Maya prepared herself for what was to come. That evening, she decided to confront Ethan directly. She waited until he came home and sat across from him at the dining table. Her calm demeanor hid the storm brewing inside her. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady. Ethan looked at her with a hint of unease. "What's going on?" Maya slid a single photo across the table, a screenshot of one of his transactions. Ethan's face turned pale. "What is this?" he stammered. "You tell me," Maya replied, her eyes locked on his. "I know everything, Ethan. The cameras, the recordings, the sales. All of it." Ethan tried to laugh it off, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. "You're being ridiculous," he said. "I would never." "Don't," Maya interrupted, her voice sharp. "Don't lie to me. I've seen the files. I've watched the footage. I have proof, Ethan. And so do the police." The mention of the police made Ethan's mask slip completely. His confident facade crumbled, and he began to stammer excuses, trying to shift the blame. But Maya didn't let him get a word in. She stood, towering over him for the first time in their relationship. "You violated me in the worst way imaginable," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "And now, you're going to pay for it." As Ethan sat in stunned silence, Maya walked out of the room. She had done her part. The rest was up to the authorities. The public exposure she hit record, and the truth unraveled for everyone to see. Ethan paced the apartment like a cornered animal, his calm, confident facade entirely gone. Maya sat silently in her room, watching the live feed from her hidden camera as Ethan frantically deleted files from his laptop and external drives. The fear etched on his face should have brought her relief, but it didn't. It reminded her of just how much power he had taken from her. But tonight, the balance of power would shift for good. At exactly 7 p.m., there was a loud knock at the door. Maya didn't move from her spot, her laptop open in front of her, watching as Ethan froze mid-motion. His hands hovered over his laptop, his face pale as he muttered, "No, no, no, no." The knock came again, louder this time, followed by the unmistakable call of law enforcement. "This is the police." Open the door. Maya stood and walked out of her room, her footsteps steady and deliberate. She met Ethan's panicked gaze as she reached for the door handle. "I told you," she said softly, her voice calm but laced with finality. "It's over." She opened the door to a group of officers and detectives, their presence filling the apartment. Ethan's protests were immediate and desperate. "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything wrong." he shouted as officers guided him to the couch and began seizing his devices. Maya stood back, arms crossed, watching as the search unfolded. One of the officers approached her. "Thank you for your courage," he said. "Your evidence was critical in securing this warrant," Maya nodded, a lump forming in her throat. For weeks, she had felt powerless, but now she finally felt seen. Ethan's arrest made headlines the next day. News articles detailed the charges against him: illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, and distribution of explicit content without consent. The story spread quickly, and Maya's phone buzzed nonstop with messages of support. But the real fallout came online. Maya had quietly posted her own statement on a newly created social media account, sharing her experience without naming herself or Ethan directly. "What happened to me was a violation of the deepest kind," she wrote. "But I refuse to let it define me. If you've ever felt powerless, know this: you are stronger than you think, and your voice matters." The post went viral within hours, with thousands of likes, comments, and shares. People applauded her bravery, and many shared their own stories of betrayal and survival. Maya hadn't expected the outpouring of support, but it fueled her determination to keep fighting. Ethan's close circle began to distance themselves as more details emerged. Friends, colleagues, and even family members publicly condemned his actions. But the most shocking revelation came when one of Ethan's former girlfriends reached out to Maya. She admitted that she, too, had been a victim of his surveillance, but she had been too afraid to speak up. Maya encouraged her to come forward, and together, they worked with law enforcement to build an even stronger case against Ethan. As more victims spoke out, Ethan's world crumbled further. His lawyer tried to argue that Maya had set him up, but the evidence she had collected was irrefutable. With Ethan behind bars awaiting trial, Maya shifted her focus to something greater: helping others. She partnered with advocacy groups dedicated to fighting cybercrimes and protecting victims of privacy violations. Her story became a rallying cry for those who had suffered in silence, and she was invited to speak at conferences, webinars, and even on national television. Maya's message was simple yet powerful: your story matters, and your voice can make a difference. Have you ever felt powerless in a situation? How did you take back control? Let us know your story in the comments. It might inspire someone else to keep fighting. Like this video if you believe in standing up for yourself and others, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience and justice. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an empowering story. She thought the nightmare would never end, but now she was finally free. Maya stood in the courtroom, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as the judge read the charges against Ethan. She had spent months preparing for this moment, gathering every ounce of strength she had to face him one last time. Ethan sat across the room, his once confident demeanor reduced to a shadow of its former self. The man who had violated her trust and privacy now looked small, powerless, and utterly exposed. The prosecutor presented the overwhelming evidence: the hidden cameras, the recorded transactions, and the testimonials from Maya and the other victims who had come forward. Ethan's attempts to deny his actions fell flat against the weight of proof. Maya's heart raced as the judge delivered the verdict: guilty on all counts. For the first time in what felt like forever, Maya exhaled. Justice had been served. Ethan's sentencing marked the end of a chapter Maya never wanted but couldn't escape. He was handed a lengthy prison sentence, and the court ordered restitution to his victims. The verdict sent a clear message: actions like Ethan's wouldn't go unpunished. But for Maya, the end of the trial wasn't the end of her journey. The scars of betrayal and humiliation didn't disappear overnight. She began therapy to process the trauma, learning how to rebuild her sense of trust and safety. Her therapist reminded her that healing wasn't linear, and it was okay to take things one step at a time. Maya's viral story had turned her into an unexpected advocate. Offers poured in from organizations, conferences, and even tech companies asking her to share her experience and help develop better protections for privacy and cybercrime victims. While the attention felt overwhelming at first, Maya realized this was her chance to make a difference. She partnered with a nonprofit focused on digital safety and launched a campaign called Own Your Privacy, aimed at educating people about surveillance, consent, and protecting themselves in an increasingly digital world. She spoke at schools, workplaces, and online forums, using her voice to empower others to recognize and fight against violations of their rights. Through her advocacy, Maya discovered a strength she never knew she had. She was no longer defined by what had happened to her, but by how she had chosen to rise above it. A year later, Maya found herself standing on a stage at a major conference on cybersecurity and digital ethics. As she looked out at the sea of faces, She thought back to the woman she had been just a year ago, scared, isolated, and unsure of how to move forward. "I never thought I'd be here," she began, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "I thought what happened to me would break me, but instead, it taught me how strong I am. It taught me that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to fight back and reclaim our lives." The audience erupted into applause, and Maya felt a surge of pride and hope. She had turned her pain into power, and she knew she was making a difference. After the conference, Maya returned to her new apartment, a space she had carefully chosen and made her own. It was free of hidden cameras, microphones, and memories of betrayal. For the first time in years, she felt truly safe. She sat down with a cup of tea and opened her laptop, where she had started writing a book about her journey. Titled Reclaiming Me: Turning Betrayal into Strength, the book wasn't just about what Ethan had done. It was about resilience, empowerment, and the journey to rediscovering herself. As she typed the final words of the manuscript, Maya smiled. The nightmare Ethan had created was over, and while it had left its marks, it had also revealed her strength, courage, and determination to make the world a little safer for others. Maya recorded one last video for her advocacy channel. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes filled with the confidence she had fought so hard to regain. "To anyone who feels like their trust has been betrayed or their privacy violated, I want you to know this: you are not alone. What happened to you does not define you. You have the power to reclaim your life, to turn your pain into something meaningful. Your story matters, and so do you." She ended the video with a heartfelt smile. "Thank you for being part of my journey. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own story in the comments. Together, we can make a difference.